Hello and welcome to the All-Stars Hurling Team of the Year, brought to you by Our Game. Myself, Shane Stapleton, Michael Verney there in that small window right there. If you're a big Limerick fan and you want to commemorate the occasion, we've got those commemorative Limerick hurleys that you can order. It's burnt into the timber, so any of the hurleys up to size 30, you can get them with it burnt into the timber, and you can get it done in colour. Otherwise, it's sort of a stencil affair after that. So go ahead and look into that. Michael Verney, we have micromanaged this hurling season, really. But for this one, we've kind of decided to do a blank slate. So we want people to get their comments in on YouTube, on Twitter, wherever it might be. Join into the conversation, help us pick this all-star team from a blank slate. I think it was important we didn't sit down and have it half-picked beforehand, because then it might run a little bit too smoothly. We're going to have our first ever row, and it's going to be here live on air.
Yeah, there's no point in having it all picked out now. We're going to trash it out here, just like they would in an all-star meeting. There's probably going to have to be some horse trading over different positions. But let's bring it on. I have ideas of who I think should be where, probably. You probably have your own ideas as well. Our all-star teams varied before the final, so I'm sure they're going to vary even more now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we might as well jump straight into it. And as I said, we're absolutely delighted to get any comments in. And if anyone has any thoughts, throw them in on Twitter, YouTube, wherever. It does not matter. Okay, we'll start in the goals. And I think this could be... I think we might agree here a little bit more handily than we might on any other position. Now, I have my match programs here from some of the different days, and it's probably got to be Nicky Quaid. I think Stephen O'Keefe has a fair shout, the Ballygunner man for Waterford, but it's probably going to be Nicky Quaid, is it?
Well, Limerick conceded 3 goals in this year's championship, and none of those 3 goals were scored in their last 3 games. They didn't concede a goal in the Munster final, All-Ireland semi-final, or the All-Ireland final. And in fairness, I think Nicky Quaid saved his best to last. I thought he was absolutely outstanding in the All-Ireland final. Just like Shane, I think people think, oh, maybe he didn't have a load of brilliant saves to make. But he just, there's just no mistakes. He just does the simple things so well. I don't know if there's, a better goalkeeper with regards to puckouts as well. I don't think there is, and I don't think there has been in recent years. His placement, how many times do his puckouts go out over the sideline? How many times do his puckouts not go to the destination? I tipped him up before the final. I thought he was a good shout to be in the Hurler of the Year conversation at 100-1. And I think he could still yet be in the Hurler of the Year conversation. Now, albeit a distant third to the 2 boys who I think will be 1 and 2, but I think he could still be in that conversation.
And you know what? When I was talking about Nicky Quaid to people before, they were saying there might be a bit of a James McGarry vibe to him, because when Kilkenny had that unbelievably dominant team, he probably wasn't getting nominated for All-Stars by virtue of the fact that he didn't have too much to do. But maybe because hurling has changed so much, and it's not just a case of throw the ball long and win your own ball. He's now, tactically, puck-out wise, they're so far ahead. And I did a piece with Sean Flynn, and I'll be doing another piece reviewing the All-Ireland final about how much Limerick are producing from their own puckouts and their retention and all that kind of stuff. So it can't be ignored, and I kind of agree with you there. I think I can go ahead and put him in as number 1 here, can I?
Yeah, Stephen O'Keefe, unfortunately, he conceded 5 goals. He conceded 5 goals between the All-Ireland semi-final and the All-Ireland quarter-final. And although he pulled off a couple of great saves against Clare in particular, he was probably at fault for maybe one of them that was hit down at his body. Now, he pulled off a great double save in the All-Ireland final. It wasn't his fault that he had little to do thereafter, but you'd have to say, as a total package, I think Nicky Quaid has been absolutely outstanding this year. Like, he just literally no mistakes, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you want to take us through the options in the corner back slot, or should I say the full back line, really, because generally you'll have 2 in the full back line, but I think we've got to play... We're possibly going to end up in bother here, but we're going to try as best as we can to have guys playing in the positions they should be in.
Yeah, so like cornerbacks, you're probably looking at Shane McNulty from Waterford, Sean Flynn from Limerick, Barry Nash from Limerick. They're out and out cornerbacks. Ian Kenny probably wasn't playing for long enough probably to be in that conversation. You're probably looking at Conor Delaney from Kilkenny, who was nearly always at cornerback. They're probably the standout. Maybe you could have Alan Flynn play cornerback against Cork, but he was probably maybe more out the field. So I would say, like, if we're picking like number 2, or we're picking our first cornerback, and I'm a big believer that a cornerback is a cornerback. We can't have a load of fullbacks in the full back line, because a fullback is a specialist position. I'd say the lads I mentioned there are probably what we're picking from.
Cathal Barrett, I know he got that red card for the second yellow, but I thought he had a fine season.
No, he had a good season. Obviously, the sending off against Galway is probably, turned Tipperary's season. But before that, I thought he was brilliant. He was brilliant against Cork as well. She's probably the only tip man really that gave a decent performance, a really good performance against Limerick when they were defeated. But just the nature of the sending off as well, the fact that he was probably under the cosh a small bit from Brian Kincannon in that game. I wouldn't have him. To me, I'm looking at Sean Flynn number 2 anyway, just because, and I appreciate that he had probably a slow start against Limerick and may have been a trouble at times against Tipperary, but as the season went on, he just got better and better and probably saved his best performance for the All-Ireland final when he was marking Desi Hutchinson. I thought he totally snuffed him out. His ability on the ball and his ability to retain possession on the ball was brilliant as well. He was under pressure maybe at stages against Galway as well, but as games go on, he just kept getting better and better. Munster final as well had a brilliant performance too.
He's the leader. There's no question here. Sean Flynn is in as number 2, and there's no debate, because I think no matter who we pick, if we're gonna, like, he can interchange between fullback and cornerback as required, and you could imagine him playing in the half back line. There'd probably be no bother there either, because he's got great hurling, he's great touch, he's powerful, he's able for a big man, he's able for a small man, and he's commanded a full back line that's been much changed. Dan Morrissey's gone back there, Barry Nash has gone back there, and both of those lads have had great seasons. And we could arguably end up picking the entire full back line of Limerick here, and who knows if we will or not. But I've actually been taken aback by the amount of comments from people going on about how good a season Barry Nash has had. And when I didn't pick him in the team of the week just gone for the All-Ireland final and also the Joe McDonagh final, people were looking at why isn't he in here? Why isn't he necessarily being looked at? Would you be having Barry Nash in the conversation to really push in here?
I think he's in the conversation, but he's not in my team. But that's not to say he hasn't been. He's been outstanding from the point of view of a rookie cornerback, really, a guy that played Conor Ford under 21, came on in the All-Ireland semi-final last year as a wing back, was maybe looking at a wing back spot, probably number 7 this year, dropped back to number 4 and was absolutely brilliant. And I suppose Limerick played to their strengths in the sense that they tried to get him on the ball as much as they could from sharp hookouts because they know how comfortable he is on the ball. I think he was solid, probably not spectacular, but really, really solid. Like, apart from that mistake against Clare where Ryan Taylor nipped in and got a goal, and a couple of fouls maybe early on in the, I think it was the Munster final, I think he's really, really grown into the year. He's probably a very solid 7, I would say, the whole way through the year. Now, this is where the problem comes, in the sense of, we probably have 2 outstanding fullbacks this year fighting it out for one spot. So this is where probably the conversation has to happen. Are we just picking one fullback? And if you're not picked fullback, i.e. Dahi Burke or Dan Morrissey, are you totally losing out? Or is there a bit of wiggle room where one of them could go to the corner? My opinion is that with where Dahi plays and the fact that he actually drifted out the pitch and ended up cornerback at different stages this year, I think if we were to put one of them cornerback, he would be the most likely one that could go cornerback, and it's not far-fetched to put him cornerback. What do you think?
Yeah, well, like, maybe you on the back of this you can look at a couple of comments we've already maybe had on Twitter or what have you. But I think you can make a fair case to have Dahi Burke picked a cornerback here, or even Conor Ponti minded the square all year. You could maybe put him in the corner, or Dan Morrissey, because that full back line is normally 2, and then in Barry Nash's case, at times he was marking people and maybe marking the person who drifted away from goal a little bit, because that's just the way it happens now. It is a bit of a movable feast, and he was sweeping at times. But where I generally have a problem is if you pick, like Brian Howard played in the forwards and midfield for Dublin last year, and he was picked centre back in the All-Stars, and this is something that we've often given out about. A guy not even picked on the same line of the field or in a position where he's kind of been nominally for the season. So this is why I wouldn't want us sort of shoehorning Diarmaid Byrnes in corner back. If he's the best wing back, put him best wing back. And like, I'm saying that now, but we might run into bother a little bit further down this conversation, because obviously we haven't agreed this beforehand. We're picking from a blank slate. But was there any comments just there that you wanted to have a look at?
Yeah, no, Adam Dennehy on YouTube just said we're on the number 3 position. He just said Dahi Burke say no more was what he said. Interesting. Brendan H on Twitter sent me through his team. Dahi Burke's not on that team. He has Dan Morrissey at fullback. He's Conor Ponti at number 4. Stuart KK at Stewie Don on Twitter had Sean Finn, Dahi Burke, Dan Morrissey as his full back line. And a couple more. We had Richie Shea on Twitter as well, had Finn, Burke and Morrissey in his full back line. If I'm picking the full back line, I'm putting Dan Morrissey full back, because he was predominantly nearly always at the edge of the square nearly the whole way through the year, and I'm putting Dahi Burke at cornerback because I think he's more flexible to play out in the corner as he had been. But those two guys were often left in a 2-man full back line, which means you're not just playing the edge of the square, and they both were able to cope really, really well. So that's the way I'd be looking at my full back line anyway.
You're going with, yeah. You see, Dahi Burke, I think he's had, all of these players that we're talking about have had really good seasons, but it's down to fine margins. I would say some of Dahi Burke's best hurling happened when he was moved further away from the square. So like when he went out into the half back line against Limerick, I thought he really excelled there. When he did the same against Tipperary when he was following Seamus Callan, I thought that's when he drove the team the most. Now, I'm not suggesting we put him into the full back line here, but if we're talking about who excelled the most in the full back line, I would think Dan Morrissey has to be number 3 here. Now, he would have always had protection in front of him. The ball going in probably wouldn't have been great because Limerick were so dominant out the field. But I think Dan Morrissey has to be the number 3 here. And I know what you're saying about putting Dahi out in the corner, and I agree with that. But are we doing a disservice to a cornerback by not just accepting, look, Dahi in general, he played full back, probably had a tough time on Richie Hogan when he moved in there in the Leinster final, and I know he was only back from injury. So this is why I'm not 100% sure I'd have Dahi Burke in there, even though I'm right there pushing, saying he's the best full back in the country, or very close to it.
He played predominantly in the full back line. I don't think we can pick a full back line without Dahi Burke in it. It's not like we're shoehorning Brian Howard back to centre back, or we're putting Colin Cavan a full back like has been done with All-Star committees before. We're putting him in a line of the field that he is predominantly played in. Now, realistically, Shane, we're talking about who's going to lose out. And I think probably if you're looking at an out-and-out cornerback losing out, you're probably looking at someone like Conor Delaney moving out, who was brilliant in the Leinster final, who was brilliant, who was good in the All-Ireland semi-final, and Desi Hutchinson as well. So that's the debate we need to have. Are you putting a full-back cornerback in Dahi Burke, and are you going ahead of a lad who played cornerback all year in Conor Delaney?
And does Ronan Maher feature in this? I know I'm bringing up a tip man, but you're not going to do it. And I think he probably had as rough a time as anybody did against Limerick. But I thought he was brilliant in the other games against both Cork and also against Galway.
Yeah, he would have been predominantly playing full back as well. So I'm not, like, I think Dahi played out the field a bit more than he did. I couldn't justify him putting him 3.
Yeah.
Did he play away from the square enough to justify it putting him 4? I don't think so, even though he did have a great season and he was brilliant on Patrick Horgan in particular against Cork. I think, Shane, it comes straight down to to me it's either Dahi Burke or Conor Delaney at 4. For me, I can't stand over a full back line that Dahi Burke's not part of. And he did play away from the edge of the square. He played away from the edge of the square, not as much as he did at the edge of the square, but he was away from there a good bit. I can't stand over a full back line that he's not part of. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on it.
Well, why not Conor Ponti?
Shane, now come on. Now I'm a big fan of Conor Ponti, but he was under pressure in the game against Clare. He was probably directly at fault for 4 or 5 goals across their All-Ireland quarter-final and semi-final.
Well, you know
I'm as big a fan as him. You know I'm a big fan of his. And I know he had his moments in the All-Ireland final, but his direct opponent still got 4 points from play. It's not as if, and he don't get me wrong, he did do well, but I couldn't justify him at 4 ahead of either Dahi or Conor Delaney.
Yeah, well, at the same time, Dahi slipped for the goal for Callan, and Richie Hogan came in and did a bit of damage on him as well. So nobody has a perfect record here. I think Dan Morrissey pretty much has a very, very clean record. But I would say Conor Ponti, yeah, he had those couple of balls snapped by Aaron Shanaher, one of which led directly to a goal, another which led to an assist for Aidan McCarthy. And then the other goal, I don't think you could blame Ponti because he had to go to David McInerney for the hand pass over his head. And then obviously in the next game as well, I can see what you're saying against Kilkenny. There was a couple of high balls that he maybe should have dealt with a little bit better. But on the 2 big days against Limerick in the Munster final and the All-Ireland final, and obviously also against Cork before that, he delivered big performances. I know Aaron Gillane got 4 from play, but the quality of the ball going in, like you nearly have to judge how does a guy go against Limerick here at this point. And like we've talked about Dahi Burke, and especially when he came out the field, he did do really, really well. But you can't ignore the amount of 50-50 at best ball that he won against Aaron Gillane when you're up against it and your team has been overwhelmed.
I'm definitely not ignoring it. No one appreciates it more than me as a cornerback who's been hung out to dry by several wing backs standing out too far away from me and lovely deliveries coming in. So nobody appreciates that more than me. Just a comment in from Jerry Brown there. Sean Finn, Dan Morrissey and Conor Delaney will be my full back line. So there's definitely plenty of opposition there. I'm going with Dahi Burke at 4. What are your thoughts?
I want to give Conor Delaney a fair mention too. I think he's been very good. Now the entire Dublin kind of put the entire Kilkenny backline under awful pressure during that 16-point sort of comeback in the second half of that Leinster semi-final. But I think he stood up really well over the season. He's a player I very much like back there. But I think in the heel of the hunt, as things stand now, I'm probably going to have to go along with you and say Dahi Burke. And it's not like I'm saying, okay, I'll go with Dahi Burke. He's obviously brilliant and has had a really good season. It's just fine margins with all these things. So I'm going to update the team there and we'll have Dahi Burke.
There are arguments to be made for him not being in there or someone else potentially being in there. Brendan Delahunty on Twitter has Sean Finn, Dan Morrissey and Rory Hayes. And Rory Hayes is someone that definitely does deserve a mention. But the only thing I'd say, Rory Hayes was tried unbelievably hard against when they played Waterford that day. But Dessie Hutchinson still got 2-2 and set up a goal. Now, there was lovely ball coming into him. He did do a great job on Rory O'Connor, in fairness. He definitely had his moments, and I definitely say he's definitely one for the future.
Do you think for him it was a bit like Conor Ponti against Aaron Gillane in that he won an awful lot of ball that was very difficult to win, but at the same time, his man comes away with a decent haul?
Yeah, I'd say he won a lot of the 50-50 balls. There's very little a cornerback or a full-back player can do when the ball coming in is 80-20. You're expecting him, you need a mistake from the forward. And a lot of these good forwards won't make those mistakes and you just end up looking bad, as I have several times.
Me too. This half-back line, I think this is going to be arguably the hardest part of the field.
Yeah, this is messy. This is messy.
The way we like it, it's messy.
Yeah, like I had Caleb Lyons wing back, and I thought he was a cert before the All-Ireland final. Whether he's still a cert is debatable. Tadhg de Borca was brilliant coming into the final. Looked like he had that All-Star award nailed down at centre back. He went off after 21 minutes, obviously in the All-Ireland final. So there's a lot up for debate here. I would say, like. Is there a fair chance that Limerick could end up with the 3 half-backs? I'd say there is.
I mean, like Caleb Lyons and Tadhg de Borca, they both have had brilliant seasons, and we're talking about leaving them out. I mean, before the final, that was like, you couldn't fathom that. But now Diarmaid Byrnes, Declan Hannon, Kyle Hayes, I think the two wing backs have probably stood out more. Like Hannon has still been very good, but I think the 2 wing backs are nearly the certs before you start talking about anyone else.
Probably, like Diarmaid Byrnes, I'm amazed. Diarmaid Byrnes is 8-13 to get an All-Star with Paddy Power at the moment, which I'm amazed by, because just what he contributed from play and from frees, and even just the block down on Stephen Bennett in the final. I think his deliveries are so much better now. I think he's so much smarter with possession now. I thought he had a really solid nearly in every game this year. Just a really kind of solid graph now. Maybe no kind of peaks and troughs like we would have had before. I'm going to find it very, very hard to go away from him at number 5. Just what he offers you going forward, what he offers you on the ball, and when he has to defend, my God, is he able to defend? I think he's a really, really solid option at 5, I have to say. Yeah,
look, we're both agreed that Diarmaid Byrnes has to be in here as things stand now. I wonder will we waver in a couple of minutes. I'm pushing for Tadhg de Borca at number 6. I'm pushing hard for him. In fact, I'm going to veto this entire thing if you say Tadhg de Borca isn't at number 6.
Can we come back to Can we come back to 6 for a minute and go to 7? So Caleb Lyons is obviously someone we talked about. Like, how much stock are you placing on the All-Ireland final here?
But this is what I said with Conor Ponti. The big day, you have to put a lot of stock into it. Would you say Tadhg de Borca had done well in his 21 minutes?
I'd say he done fine. I don't think he was outstanding in the 20 minutes he was on the pitch. He actually, probably Keane Lynch was drifting out really, really far out the field. They were probably kind of cancelling each other out. So like so like he didn't do anything to me. He didn't do anything to increase his chance of being in the team.
Yeah. So what has to happen here then is someone else would have had to perform above and beyond that to sort of take it away from him, because going into the final, I think he was in for hurler of the year basically. If Watford won and he played well, he was in for hurler of the year. So has somebody else either in that game done something above and beyond him? Because it can't be someone from another team. It can't be a Tip player, a Clare player, so on and so forth, on the basis of that. So it could only really be another Watford player or a Limerick player.
Yeah, Adam Dennehy on YouTube just said, I'd still give Tig the nod at number 6, heart and soul of Waterford, and probably his injury killed any chance they had on Sunday, even though Irna Daly came in and did well initially. Yeah. Just looking back at the game again, and he's often understated at times, but Declan Hannon is so good on the ball. Yeah. He's so good on the ball. Like we did the best centre back conversation a couple of months ago, and we I think we both stumped on him just because he's probably the most natural kind of centre back. When that's probably maybe when De Borca wasn't, we weren't sure of his fitness at that stage. When he gets forward and scores, he never gives away a ball. He gets in huge tackle count as well. I think if we're debating number 6, we're debating Hannon and De Borca. Like, I'll put it to you this way. Who would you take? Let's forget about this year for a minute. A fully fit Hannon and a fully fit De Borca. Who do you take at 6?
That is a horrific question. I'll tell you what. Both of them can take the ball, drive forward, and knock a ball over the bar, or set it up nicely for their teammates. I would say I think they're pretty level in that point of view. But if you're going to talk about sweeping and winning dirty ball and ruck ball on the ground and coming out and using their pace and their power, I think I'd just about give it to De Borca. I think, Hannon is silkier. He's silkier, he's more graceful. But I think I'd just about edge with De Borca here. I'd love to know what other people think, because it's not like we've sat here and kind of mulled over this for ages. It's more of like an eye test, an instinct test who I'd go for.
See, it's kind of like De Borca, because of the way he plays, and probably because he's playing with, I don't mean this a slight at all. Waterford are a lesser team. He has to make more of an impact every time he gets the ball, where Hannon just keeps doing the simple things well and does them unbelievably well every time he's on the ball. He doesn't have to maybe make those big incisive runs that De Borca does, but he never gives away the ball. Like how often, Janie, I just thinking back through the 5 games Limerick played this year, do I recall Declan Hannon giving away the ball once? I don't. He always, maybe it's because it's only a 20-yard stick pass sometimes, but some of the ball he gives into the forwards absolutely outstanding as well. So they probably are doing similar roles, but they have to do them in different ways for their team. I think Hannon is massively in the centre-back all-star conversation. Massively.
Yeah, look, it's not that I disagree with you. And what I want to do here is I want to just bring up on the screen the All-Ireland semi-final and just see, is there something now where we can look at, this is a match report from Fintan O'Toole. I'm wondering, was he brought off towards the end?
He was, Hannon was brought off towards the end. Conor Whelan went out centre forward and did cause him a small bit of trouble.
Yeah, and again, this isn't kind of trying to find a way to slate a guy so we can take him out of the team. It's all those fine margins. I think I still have to go with Tig De Borca, even though Declan Hannon's importance was probably summed up in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. He gets that blow to the head early on against Kilkenny, and maybe that's a huge reason why they don't come through that game. So, while I totally I'm so happy to talk about how brilliant he is as a player, like, Tig De Borca's brilliance is so much more important to Watford because they rely on him putting the team on the front foot even more.
David O'Neill on Twitter here or on YouTube says, keep pushing Shane. He doesn't want you to acquiesce to me. And to be fair, on the basis of some of Tig De Borca's performances this year, even if he hadn't played in the All-Ireland final at all, I would still have him heavily in the conversation. I'd say I'd have either of them at centre back, but I think probably De Borca just ever so slightly ahead of Hannon. If I was taking a number 6 in the morning, it's probably 50-50 who I take for my team. But I'll go along with De Borca, in fairness. He had some unbelievable performances. In fairness, he was the heartbeat of that Waterford team, and maybe we saw how much he was missed when he wasn't on the pitch.
What a defence we have so far here. Like, just reading out 1 to 6. Nicky Quaid, Sean Finn, Dan Morrissey, Dahi Burke, Diarmuid Burns, Tig De Borca. We wouldn't get a puck of a ball off these lads.
Graffin 33 says Tyg de Burka best in the country at 6 at the moment. Hannon is superb in possession and his distribution is exceptional. But de Burka has to be the all-star centre back for the year. So fairness, he's probably confirmed what we were thinking.
Okay, and then number 7. I think this is probably. I mean, is it an easy one? Because I'm thinking it has to be Kyle Hayes, but that means that we're leaving Caleb Lyons out of our team.
Yeah, coming into the final, as I said, I would have had Lyons ahead of Hayes, but just looking at the impact like Hayes made, he obviously didn't start the first game. He didn't start the first game at wing back. He started the second game at wing back against Tipperary. Was probably not quiet against Tip. He was solid against Tip, but from the Munster final onwards, he's been unbelievable. Like, he's done as much damage, I would say, nearly from wing back as he would from centre forward. Maybe perhaps just not on the scoreboard. Here's a guy who, you know, had a goal chance in the All-Ireland semi-final, well saved. Had a goal chance in the All-Ireland final, unbelievably well saved from Stephen O'Keefe. Got a point in the final, put over 3 beautiful diagonal balls in the final that all ended in scores. Knocked back Austin Gleeson a couple of times. Just the physicality that he brings to the table. I think Darragh O'Donovan had a tweet up yesterday, best number 7s in the world, Cristiano Ronaldo, George Best, and Kyle the Bomber Hayes. And I'd probably find it hard. I'd find it very hard not to put him in, just for the impact that he made. Like, they had to shift their team when the 2 guys had to go back to the full back line. Dan Morrissey and Nash, both natural half-backs, and Hayes went back to wing back. And if anything, he made their defence even more potent. And he's probably the natural successor, I would say, to Hannon at centre back, albeit in a different type of a player. He's been unbelievable at wing back.
Yeah, he was so good against Galway. Just the way he drives that team forward, his power, pace, dropping back to take puck outs. I think teams are now going to teams are going to be so concerned about how do you set up for puck outs against Limerick. Because you even see what Waterford did in the Munster final. They were sort of, you know, dropping back a little bit. But like, Nicky Quaid doesn't mind putting Kyle Hayes hitting him into a tight little area, because he knows he can turn and go at his man and put the team on the front foot. So it's even just the way the opposition is now going to have to set up to make sure that they don't get exposed by Kyle Hayes on a puck out. I mean,
Jerry Brown has taken the words out of my mouth. He's literally the Jack McCaffrey of hurling now. Like, Kerry had to think last year, what are they going to do? Are they going to put Stephen O'Brien man marking Kyle Hayes? That's kind of what you're thinking now. And when a wing back is causing opposition teams to have those types of conversations, like, it's the highest compliment, really. Caleb Lyons is unlucky to do his out. Will we be talking about Caleb Lyons in this conversation for years to come? I think we will. I think he'll learn massively from the All-Ireland final in particular. And still had his moments in the final, but probably struggled, been on Hegarty at times and been on Morrissey at other times. And just for the impact he had at both ends of the field. And even we talked about on the Monday show, Shane, they showed the pictures from the back of the goal on the Sunday game the other night, and just how defensively astute he is as well. It's not just bombing forward, as you said the other day. It's bombing forward when the situation allows you to bomb forward. It's been a defender first and foremost. And I don't think we can have too much debate about putting Kyle Hayes in at 7.
Yeah, he's in there. Is there any player from a team that we haven't yet discussed that should have been in that conversation? So I'll just name out counties that we haven't featured here, and just kind of think off the top of your head. I think Wexford, they haven't had the season that they'd want to have, so I don't think we can have a case for any of their players.
Mark Coleman would have been one from Cork, I would say. They probably would come into the conversation, particularly a half-back, but he played sweeper probably a bit more. Yeah, but he was very, very good on the ball. Particularly, he was outstanding against Dublin. He was decent at times against Tipperary. He was probably their best player against Waterford, even though he was maybe out around the middle of the field. He's probably someone that would come into the conversation. If you're looking at the Dubs as regard half-backs, you can't really think of anybody offhand. Are there any Kilkenny half-backs that deserve to come into the conversation? Thought Killian Buckley was very good in the first half against Waterford. Yeah. But does he come enough into the conversation?
He did well against Danny Sutcliffe also, but if the measuring stick is Diarmaid Byrnes, Tyg de Burka, Kyle Hayes, it's not quite at that this year.
No, I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think you can have too much argument with them. Like David O'Neill on YouTube just says Kyle Hayes end off, move on lads.
Yeah.
So
But at the same time, no, we do want to quickly gloss over some of these counties. I don't think Tipperary can necessarily have too many arguments here. Dublin, like you said, I don't think we can have Laois in there. Is like Clare, we've talked about Clare a little bit, but I'm not really sure in the half back line. Other than Rory Hayes, maybe as a sort of an honourable mention in the full back line. Probably can't mention anyone else too much in there. Is there any other county that we're missing out on?
from Galway's point of view, like I'd be disappointed that they weren't playing to a system where Pádraig Mannion's not coming into this conversation. You know, he's playing as a sweeper. Like I personally think that's a bit of a waste of one of your best players.
Yeah.
You know, I think he should be driving Galway forward more rather than not plugging a hole. But you know what I mean. I think he's too good for that position. As regards, you know, previous guys who the number 7 position has probably been totally dominated by Pádraig Matter in recent years. He had a much quieter year for Tipperary this year, and he'll be hoping to bounce back next year. And as you say, just because, you know, guys are nearly nailed on here, there are other fellas that we do, you know, need to give honourable mentions to. I'd say we probably have the bulk of them covered.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll move on to midfield, I suppose. And who were the options that you were looking at here?
Well, Shane, the conversation needs to happen now. Where are we looking at Tony Kelly? Where are we looking at him? Because I see him he was shoehorned in at midfield on the Sunday game team of the year. I'm looking at the Paddy Power odds here for him. He's down as a midfielder. He's 1-33 to get the midfielder award. Did he play enough at midfield to deserve to be in the midfield conversation?
This is the thing that I found a little bit unusual about the Sunday game team of the year, that they said they changed formation and had 3 midfielders, and then Tony Kelly was picked at number 13, and so we're to interpret then that that's a 3-man midfield with him moved back there. I don't think he played there. I think he, like exactly as the team was picked, I think that's how he actually played. They had a 13 who roams. So how do you actually put that on a pitch map like we have here to the side? You can't really put him anywhere. You just have to leave it 13 or 15. So I think that's what he did. And I think the Sunday game team, they didn't even need to say that. They just had to say, well, one of those corner forwards is a Roman Tony Kelly. So I wouldn't put him midfield. He didn't play midfield. He was out there. But I think he spent an awful lot of time in the full forward line. Against Wexford, against Laois. You couldn't say he was midfield against Watford, albeit he roamed out there. So to me, he's definitely not in the midfield conversation. What about you?
The handy thing is to put in midfield. We're not taking the handy option.
Oh no.
We're going to play him predominantly where he played. He played 13, and at times he started 13 against Limerick, scored a couple of points there, drifted to the wing. Was he out around midfield sometimes? Yes. Did he ever actually play midfield? I don't think so. So I think we're having a midfield conversation without him. And for me, the obvious starting point at midfield is Will O'Donoghue. I think he was, to me, he was the marquee midfielder this year. If you're looking at it, like who's he coming up against in midfield? Did Cian Lynch play enough midfield for Limerick to have that conversation? I don't think so. You're looking at probably someone like Jamie Barron maybe in that conversation as well. And like, if Jamie Barron is picked, this is no disrespect to Jamie Barron, he's an outstanding player. Do I think he was at 2017 levels this year? Perhaps at times against Kilkenny. But in the 2 big games, the Munster final and the All-Ireland final, Will O'Donoghue had his influence totally waned out again, because I thought he was on top. I thought Will O'Donoghue the other day, looking back on the game again, thought he was brilliant in the All-Ireland final in an understated kind of a way. And even, listen, we gave out about it on Monday's show, the cynical nature with which he took down Stephen Bennett. But if he was my teammate, I'd be giving him a slap on the shoulder. He's playing within the rules. He's doing what anyone else probably should do within the rules at the moment. I think he's as close as you'll get to kind of like a Mick Fennelly type character now, with an enforcer middle of the field. I'm astounded that he's 8-1 to get a midfield all-star, and I think it's massive value. Will O'Donoghue's a 4-7 shot to me to get a midfield all-star, and I think, don't mean to be harsh, I think anybody that understands hurling and understands his role has him midfield on the all-star team all day, every day.
And let's not underestimate what he's done to get into this team. When they won the All-Ireland a couple of years ago, Darragh O'Donovan and Cian Lynch were both at midfield. Lynch wins Hurler of the Year, and I felt Darragh O'Donovan was hard done by to not get an All-Star. So to actually force your way in there, which he did in 2019, was no small feat either. And obviously Darragh O'Donovan has had to be patient, and he got back into the team with Keane Lynch moving elsewhere onto the field. So I do agree with you on Will O'Donoghue. He's in my team as well. I'm very pedantic. He wears number 9, so he's getting number 9 here. There's no number 8. And that's our way. And I know there's people out there who are just like me as well, but it would actually just look wrong to have him as the number 8 over there, so over at that side I should say. So Will O'Donoghue, we're both agreed on that one. We're both happy enough on that one. You mentioned Jamie Barron there in that Munster final. I thought it was so close to being his day. Like, there was sometimes when he had these spills that you were like, that's not quite Jamie Barron, that's not quite Jamie Barron. And then he plays the game against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland semi-final and you're like, that's Jamie Barron, he's back. Now, he was quiet in the All-Ireland final, so that does compromise his position here. I want to mention a few other lads, and by the way, Will O'Donoghue did have a quiet semi-final against Galway, so we might as well add that in, a couple of uncharacteristic little errors that you wouldn't normally see. But what a player.
Just on that, Shane, quickly, like, I thought he was in the top 3 for man of the match against Tipperary as well. He was very, very solid against Clare. He had 2 points that day against Tipperary. And if you're looking at someone who played really well the whole way throughout the year, he obviously came on against Tipperary in the league and turned that game as well. I think he was the linchpin in their perfect season.
Can we talk about players from other teams before we settle on this? So you're obviously never going to mention a Tipperary player, and I'm the only one batting for us. So I'm going to say that Alan Flynn has had a very good season. Not in the game against Limerick when he had to man-mark Keane Lynch and at times was just playing centre-back that day. I don't think, like, Tipperary were overwhelmed everywhere, and if you're doing a man-marking job running after somebody, it's very hard to get into the game, especially against someone like Keane Lynch. But I thought he was very, very good against Cork. I thought he was brilliant against Galway on a day when a lot of Tipperary players misfired. I thought he was brilliant, and I'm there thinking, right, he's somebody that Tipperary could sort of build around for the future, which I don't think too many people were saying this time last year or even earlier on in the league, or earlier on in the season. But I think he's really good. I'm sure you're not going to give him the green light here, but I just think it's worth mentioning him. Now, are there players from other teams here? We talked about Tony Kelly and we'll look at him elsewhere, but is there anyone from maybe Clare? I think they missed Colm Galvin, of course. I think David McInerney missed half of the games because of injury. Jason McCarthy, he was probably in and out as well. So there's probably nobody from there. There's nobody from Wexford. I don't think we can consider any Wexford player for any position, considering how they flopped this season. And that's not just trying to wind them up. I think they'd accept that. Anyone from Kilkenny, maybe Conor Brown and Conor Fogarty and different players were in there at different times. I wouldn't think that they'd be in the conversation. Maybe someone out there has a different opinion of that.
Don't think they're coming into this type of a mix. They had their moments, particularly Conor Brown had his moments at different times, particularly like surging forward maybe against Galway. Colin Mannion is probably someone who would have been in the conversation had it not been for injury. Saying that, he probably, to be fair, he got his 1-3 against Tipperary, and he was kind of drifting from midfield or drifting from half forward into those scoreboard positions. Got a couple of long distance points against Tip from out around the mid of the field, but like the fact that he went off injured after the guts of about 20-25 minutes against Limerick, to me that takes him out of the conversation. Kieran Bennett was midfield for Waterford in the All-Ireland final, was probably taken off in the semi-final and final, had a brilliant quarter-final. Darragh O'Donovan from Limerick is probably another one who kind of got his way back into the team. Did he do enough to be in this conversation? I don't think so. Michael Breen was obviously outstanding against Cork, absolutely outstanding. Is probably between midfield and half forward would definitely deserves a mention. But I'm struggling after that, to be honest with you. There's not a huge amount of candidates at midfield, and I think that's why maybe Keane Lynch is 1-20 with powers to be a midfield all-star. Like, to me, you can't justify picking a midfield. He played there in the first game and has basically been centre forward thereafter. So to me, you can't justify that. So their favourites are Tony Kelly, Lynch. And
by the way, in his one game midfield where he was against Clare, I think Colin Malone did a really good job of shutting him down, and his best form came at centre forward. So it would seem insane to me to put him in midfield.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you there, Shane. Like, we can't just, as I said, we're not putting lads in places just for the sake of it and to wangle in someone else somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have to pick guys predominantly where they were playing.
Yeah, I don't think, like, the likes of Paddy Purcell's a very good player. I don't think we're going to find a spot for him. I'm not sure we're going to find a spot for any Dublin players, any Cork ones. I think, look, are we going with Jamie Barron?
I think we're going with Jamie Barney. He obviously had a brilliant quarter final against Clare. He had a brilliant semi-final against Kilkenny. He was very good today against Cork as well. So you're saying he played 3 very good games out of 5. And who was the only player that was able to get the better of him? His midfield all-star partner. So we're picking out and out midfielders here. And to me, those two were the standout midfielders this year. And fair enough, you can put Tony Kelly back midfield if you want. You can put Keane Lynch back midfield where you want. That's not where they played. Yeah. So I think, and we talked about this before in our midfield conversation. Imagine having these two as your midfield. Imagine how well they would complement each other. The enforcer who breaks up a lot of tackles and always gives the right pass, and the fleet-footed midfielder who can just set up attack after attack.
The iron fist and the velvet glove.
You love that one.
I do. I say it all the time. Right, we'll move on to half forward line, and I'm not going to dally around here. It's Grode Hegarty and there's nobody else.
Just quickly, Shane, Eugene Lanigan says has to be Keane Lynch, but delighted to see you have Will in. And he also said Jamie Barron only had a good second half against Kilkenny. He had a outstanding second half against Kilkenny, and he was the Sky Sports man of the match today against Clare. I don't think he was man of the match that day, but he was high up and he had a brilliant game against Cork. So I definitely would still have him in on the bulk of the season. I can't have Keane Lynch midfield. I just can't have him midfield. Okay. Whether he's somewhere else or not, that's a different story.
Yeah, and we'll come to that. Grode Hegarty, wing forward, number 10, and no discussion about it.
20 points from play over 5 games, averaging 4 points from play over 5 games. I think he has changed what it is to be a half forward now. Him and his colleague at number 12, who I would strongly predict that we're going to have at number 12. They've changed what it is to be a half forward now. Used to be that tankless role where you're just a worker bee going up and down and you're doing the hard slog for someone else. But I think that has any half forward ever drifted into space like Grode Hegarty drifts into space? The pockets of space that he finds to get shots away, absolutely outstanding, and he's taken that position to a different level this year.
Yeah, if Grode Hegarty doesn't end up hurler of the year, it's probably going to be Tom Morrissey, and I'm going to put him in at number 12. I feel I don't really need to discuss that with you.
It's funny, the Tom Morrissey thing for hurler of the year. The only reason that Tom Morrissey won't get hurler of the year is because of himself, because he actually set up Grode Hegarty too much. And that's a fact. He had a load of assists for Hegarty the other day in the final. Hegarty had 7 points. Morrissey had 5. Hegarty had no assists. Morrissey had 5 assists. I think actually, although Hegarty is taller than Morrissey, Morrissey's actually a more traditional half forward in the sense of under high ball. Grode Hegarty doesn't catch that much high ball. Tom Morrissey actually probably catches more high ball, even though he's a smaller man. And he was just phenomenal the other day. His point taken, he rarely misses. He probably has a higher shot to score ratio than Grode Hegarty. There was a point on the Hogan stand sideline the other day. There was a point the other day when Kevin Moran was in his face. The only reason he wasn't man of the match in the All-Ireland final is because he set up Grode Hegarty for so many points. So he potentially could have been man of the match in the semi-final and the final. And another quick aside, he scored the first and the last point in the semi-final and the first and last point in the All-Ireland final. That just shows, here's a guy who's going as well in the first minute as he was in the last minute. Honourable mention though, and he probably won't really be come into the conversation too much because of their exploits. John Donnelly's probably, outside of TJ Reid, my favourite.
Very, very good, yeah.
Absolutely outstanding. I thought he was defiant against Waterford, and he mightn't do it on the scoreboard as much, but when he shoots, he invariably scores. The amount of frees he wins, absolutely outstanding player.
Yeah, I thought he was very good against Dublin. I put him in my team of the week after the Leinster final against Galway. He has a couple of points against Waterford here. I'm just looking at the match programme from that day. But just back to the Morrissey thing. If you were to combine the All-Ireland semi-final against Galway and the All-Ireland final against Waterford, who had a better spread over the 140 plus minutes, I would say Morrissey was actually better than Hegarty. So if you're going to say the most defining games, the tightest game they had all year against Galway in the semi-final and the All-Ireland final, where you could sort of flip a coin between the two of them, I'm going to go with Morrissey on the basis of that. But just before we move on from talking about those two guys, there's some great stats put up by the 42. I'm just going to bring them up on screen here, and it's from the All-Ireland final. So Grode Hegarty in numbers: 19 possessions in the final, 7 points scored, 12 tackles, 4 solo runs, 2 turnovers, 3 puckouts, 1, and an interception as well. And then there's one for, that's not, I have the wrong one there. But I think there's one also for Tom Morrissey. Yeah, I have it here. 17 possessions, 5 scored, 7 assists, 9 tackles, 1 turnover, 2 puckouts, 1, and 1 interception. So it pretty much between the two of them, they're all things to all men. So we're not really going to debate the fact that these two should be in here 10 and 12.
Not really, no. I tell you what though, I genuinely think Tom Morrissey's value at 10-1 to be hurler of the year. I do not think it's clear cut at all. I think Hegarty's something like 1 to 33 or something to be hurler of the year. I don't think it's anything nearly as clear cut as that. I think when you break down the brass tacks of what they did and their body of work, not just on the scoreboard, we're gone a long way from just judging people what they did on the scoreboard. And Morrissey was only 4 points behind Hegarty on the scoreboard throughout the whole season. I would say that his body of work over the whole season, when you take in scores, assists, his tackle count, his work rate, his catches from puck outs, that's like a 60-40 in Hegarty's favour in my opinion. It's anything but clear cut.
Yeah, you're doing the comments there, but I noticed one from Sean Cahalane on YouTube. Fair play, boys, playing people in their positions, respect, knowing the criticism you'll get. I'm sure that will follow.
Yeah, we're going to get absolutely slated. Just an interesting comment from Mark Ferncombe as well. He said rule number 1, only 1 free taker. So he said that's basically really only talking about that when we get to our forward line. We have our defensive free taker in Dermot Burns, and we probably have another one in Tyg de Borca. He's saying we can only pick 1. I don't think that's fair in the sense that, and I'll discuss when we get to it why I don't think it's fair, because I think a lot of the guys, even the free takers, do enough from play to be in from play even if they weren't hitting frees.
Yeah, Tom Morrissey took a free late on against Galway, so he's shown he can do it there if required.
We have a couple of substitutes as well.
We have, yeah. Do you know what? We got a comment in a little bit earlier, and I think now is a good time to bring it up. It was from, just give me 1 second to find it here, because it was from Creeks Bass 89 on YouTube. So get your comments in, like we're saying, and tell us where we're right or wrong. And it relates to Austin Gleeson. So what he says is, lads, Ozzy got 17 points this year, 15 from play, and people are not even mentioning him. It's mad. Now, I presume he's talking about for hurler of the year, or perhaps even for an All-Star. I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't be massively heavily in this conversation.
No, he definitely comes into the conversation. Obviously, like his second half against Kilkenny was one of the reasons why they were in the All-Ireland final. And to be fair, the only word I could use for him in the All-Ireland final was that he was probably defiant. Even though he was marking, an inspired player in Hayes, and he was knocked back a couple of times, but he still went at him the whole time. Even the sideline cut in the first half, he probably knew his team needed something to stay in the game. He probably didn't have enough. He didn't probably have enough possessions in the All-Ireland final to do a load of damage. With the possessions that he did have, he fairly maximised them, in fairness. And if you look at even games that he was taken off against Cork, he got 3 points from play. Probably didn't get a whole lot of possessions in that game either. When he was on the ball, I think he did an awful lot with it. And even a couple of the mistakes against Kilkenny in the first half, he was still able to bounce back and have that huge second half that got them over the line.
Yeah, you see, I think he's very close to being back at where we know he can be in that 2016 form, and even some of the flashes we've seen since, and obviously before that too. But like you mentioned, the Kilkenny game, there was a couple of wides where you're holding your head in your hands because you can't believe he's hit them. And then a couple of times in the All-Ireland final, he was either swallowed up by the huge Gengen pressing of Limerick, or whatever way you want to call it, and turned backwards, or forced into shots that he wouldn't ordinarily take on. And I'd say when you're playing against Limerick, it feels like that. You probably, even if at times you're free, you probably feel like they're all over us so often that you're probably forced into taking on these shots or make silly plays that you wouldn't ordinarily make. But I think on the whole, he's been really good and really productive. And even that free that he got, one of the 2 frees he got, was against Limerick in the All-Ireland final from more or less his own 45 or 65 on the sideline. Really needed it, and he knocked it over. So I think he's in here. I think he probably has to get into this team.
You think so?
I think so. Now, here's the question. Are we looking at him in the full forward line? He wore number 14, but he flitted in and out, and I'd say more often than not he was in the half forward line.
I don't think I'd have him in my team.
You're not man enough to put him in.
No, I don't think he did enough over the course of the season. I think there's guys that did more than him. I think what we need to do now is, right, we both agree that Tony Kelly is number 13.
I think we are, as of now, yeah, okay. I'm going to put Tony Kelly in there, right? Yeah, he's number 13.
Tony Kelly's play against Limerick in the Munster quarter-final is one of the great championship performances, one of the great championship performances. He followed that up against Wexford. He's absolutely outstanding against Wexford.
Ridiculous.
He was brilliant against Laois as well, and he was good against Waterford despite being on one leg. So now the question is about, like, just say if TJ Reid is coming into the conversation, having played a lot of full forward and done a lot of his damage at full forward, is that where he's coming into the conversation, or is he coming in at centre forward? And then we need to talk about, if Gleeson's coming into the conversation, where is he coming into the conversation? Is it the one position that's left on the half forward line, or is it it's somewhere in the full forward line? And Stephen Bennett, who will also come into the conversation, we have to decide on where these guys are actually going to be playing.
I'm going to pull my hair out even thinking about how, like, there's going to be big players losing out here. Just a couple of more comments in. Jack Nolte, Kilkenny surely after winning Leinster he should be in somewhere, but then Tony Kelly was great as well. I presume he's talking about TJ Reid. He commented with that earlier. Eugene Lanigan says Austin Gleeson deserves huge praise, the amount of criticism he received, and looks to be back to his best. Then also Eugene Lanigan, quick question for both of you, what would be your goal of the year? God, I'd have to think about that one. And Jack McGilligan, Kyle Hayes should be in for a hurler of the year. One of the Morrisseys and the Hegarty deservedly end up as the winner, but Hayes reverted to wing back and doing incredibly well there, deserves recognition. And then Jerry Brown, now this is what I meant to talk about when I mentioned his man marking job on Keane Lynch earlier. Just for the half forward line, says Jerry Brown, does Cathal Malone deserve an honourable mention? Clare's second best player after Tony Kelly. That's 100% right. He was brilliant in some of the games, and he scored 4 points one of the days. I'm trying to think, was it against Laois or Wexford, but he was really good.
Oh, he was absolutely outstanding. And I said, like, I hope that the All-Star committee, even on the 45 that they're picking, sometimes, as I said, Jack Brown got left out 2 years ago just because he's maybe not the flashiest. Cathal Malone, if he's not on the 45, it'll be an absolute travesty. Thought he was outstanding. He's not the most, most glamorous player in the world. But if you were a manager in the morning, you'd kill to have someone like him who will go out and do the job for you every day. I thought this was his best season for Clare by a country mile.
So who else is guaranteed in here? Is before we go picking number 11, whatever, is Stephen Bennett definitely in here?
I think he has to be in there, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think you're looking at, obviously he did a lot from frees throughout the year, but what he did from play, like, Waterford wouldn't have been in the All-Ireland final only for him. Like, he basically took the bull by the horns against Kilkenny with that brilliant goal after the Jack Fagan catch, that brilliant score off the hurl in the first half as well. He was a brilliant playmaker as well at different stages. Particularly in the Cork game and even in the Clare game as well. He obviously set up that goal, the Austin Gleeson shot, which Desi Hutchinson finished in the Clare game too. I think he did more than enough. He was like in the hurler of the year conversation before the final. I think he did more than enough from play to definitely warrant being in this team. I'll put it this way. Here's the one for you. If you're tied to putting one Waterford player in the forward line, it's either Austin Gleeson or Stephen Bennett. And to me, it's Stephen Bennett.
I don't think it has to work that way, that we have to pick between two.
No. It doesn't have to work that way. But if we're picking guys in positions that they predominantly played in, I think that's probably what's going to happen.
Who was better in the semi-final? Like, Stephen Bennett scored 1-3, but Austin Gleeson was huge in that second half. He was actually really good in the first half, but he just didn't have the finishing product to some of those scoring attempts he made. And then
but Stephen Bennett did have the finishing product in the first half and in the second half.
I need to double check. What did Austin Gleeson score in that game? Was it 3 or 4 points?
I think he got 4 points. 4 points in the second half.
So they both got 4 scores.
Yeah, the goal was the game changer.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to bring it up on screen here, having a little look at that. So, yeah, Stephen Bennett scored 110, 6 free, so that's 1-6 from play. Austin Gleeson with 4, and then obviously a lot of other players contributing as well. TJ Reid scored 114 in that game, 13 of them were free, so he scored 1-1 from play in that game. Right, yeah, I'm nailing
my colours to the mast. I'm having Stephen Bennett at centre forward.
Stephen Bennett at centre forward, okay. Ahead of Austin Gleeson.
Ahead of Austin Gleeson, yeah, because he played out there more. He wore 12, played half forward lock, came into the centre a lot as well. It's funny, Shane. This could be the first year ever, I'd say, where you could have 3 wing forwards in your half forward line.
So we're ignoring Keane Lynch here, are we?
To me, I am. Yeah. I think Keane Lynch had a good body of work, but if you look at just his scores here, Keane Lynch scored 7 points from play over the 5 games. Now, he set up an awful lot and was the link man an awful lot. But I think over Waterford's 5 games, I think Stephen Bennett had a greater body of work, and he definitely contributed more from play, but he contributed an awful lot as a playmaker also.
Who had a better final, Stephen Bennett or Austin Gleeson?
Austin Gleeson had a better final.
They were both brilliant in the semi-final.
Stephen Bennett was man of the match in the semi-final for his performance over 70 minutes, and he got the game-changing goal, and he was brilliant against Cork. The whole way through against Cork.
So, which of these?
And he was brilliant the whole way through against Limerick.
And which of them does more work off the ball? Like, who's the one battering lads and sending them backwards with their tackle rate? I think Austin
Shane, come on now.
Been brilliant.
Are you telling me? Did you look at the All Ireland semi-final? Stephen Bennett was under his own puckouts, and he was under the opposition puckouts. He was up and down the wing. He never stopped going. The point he got in the first half, he picked it up on his own 45 and soloed the whole way through to the far 13. No, I can't have that conversation. I can't. No, I think Stephen Bennett worked. Austin worked unbelievably hard, but I think Stephen Bennett worked even harder.
I think in the final, Austin Gleeson, and again, you talked about it as well as I did about who performs on the very biggest day, and Stephen Bennett was okay in the final. I don't think he was unbelievable. He scored 1 point from play. Austin Gleeson scored 3 from play and threw over. Like, I know Stephen Bennett threw over a number of frees, but Gleeson was throwing him over threw one over from his own half and got the sideline as well. I think Gleeson. I think it has to be Gleeson here. Now, I think people need to get their comments in and help us decide this one. We're under pressure.
No, I can't have Gleeson before Bennett, as good as he was. I can't have him. Jack McGilligan says has to be Lynch. He's the most naturally gifted talent hurler in the country. I'm not debating that at all. But we're talking about who had the most impact throughout this season. And I think Bennett and Gleeson both had more. I think Bennett had more of an impact than Gleeson, I have to say.
Okay, do you know what? I think we need to finish off a couple of the other positions before we settle on the Bennett versus Austin Gleeson thing. And again, get your comments in and help us decide this. Is Aaron Gillan getting in here?
I think we probably need to talk about TJ Reid before we talk about Aaron Gillan.
Okay, go ahead.
Mark Tobin had it in on Twitter. He said, no TJ making for the first time in a long time. He says he doesn't think TJ Reid will make the All-Star team. Now, we're talking about free takers earlier that Mark Farncombe said. TJ Reid scored 110 against Dublin, 1-4 from play. Scored 110 against Galway, 1-1 from play. Scored 114 against Waterford, 1-1 from play. He scored 3-6 from play across 3 games. He's a scorer, he assists, he catches puck outs. Scored 3-6 from play in 3 championship games. Yeah. And I would say, apart from Richie Hogan coming on in the Leinster final, like TJ was the one who, that killer blow, that second goal, he went for Galway's throat. He destroyed Dublin in that first game, and when Dublin were coming back, he was still the one winning frees, and he was still the one putting over a couple of points. And even when Waterford were doing really, really well, he was still the one that was defiant, probably him and John Donnelly. I'd have him, because he played predominantly at the edge of the square this year, I'd have him a full forward, with the view that he could come out to the half forward line. But he's my all-star full forward.
Probably nobody talks more about how good TJ Reid is than the two of us in the videos we've done about the best series, who's the best hand, who's the best centre forward, all that kind of stuff. So again, this isn't about criticising. I'm really torn on this one because against Dublin, early on Dublin picked the wrong matchup and TJ Reid goes to town and he's setting up goal chances and there's goals. Then they move Owen O'Donnell onto him, and I think Owen O'Donnell firmly wins that battle for the rest of the game.
Oh, hold on now. When Dublin had the strong hand in the second half, TJ Reid still won a couple of puckouts and got points, and he still got a point or two from play off O'Donnell when the game was going away from him.
But how much of the game being turned around was Dublin actually finding the right person to shut down someone who was annihilating them in the first half?
Possibly so, but it's not his fault that they didn't put the right man on him in the first half. He just took total advantage.
I know that, but I'm just saying these are really tight calls, and I'm going to say that I think his second half was relatively quiet. Don't get me wrong, he's still unbelievable, and there's very few players that are up to his level in the country now or ever before. Then the next game against Galway in the Leinster final, Joseph Cooney I thought did really well on him for the vast majority of the game, bar that one-on-one situation where TJ Reid danced past him, finished brilliantly. But I think overall, if you were to say who won the vast majority of the ball, I'd say it's Joseph Cooney. Now, I will add into this that it was TJ Reid's flick that allowed Richie Hogan to get in ahead of the goalkeeper. So this is what I'm saying. I'm trying to balance it up and being realistic, and it's not like, there'll obviously be people out there saying the Tipperary man's trying to talk down the Kilkenny man. That's not it. I'm actually just trying to be realistic about it. Because if I was trying to be pro Tipperary, I'd be pushing Dan McCormick and Seamus Callan even more. And I think Callan is someone we should talk about here. But then TJ Reid in the semi-final against Kilkenny, or against Waterford, yeah, you talked about him scoring that goal. Like he came in and he collected that spilled ball from Conor Ponti and nailed it beautifully. And as soon as he collected it, we all knew it was going to the back of the net. So you have to give him props for that. But then when the game was going away from him, yeah, he was still winning frees. He scored a point from play late on in the second half, but probably not as influential as maybe the other way Austin Gleeson, who kind of took over the game, as did Jamie Barron.
Yeah,
so
Shane he took over again. He took over again when his team were totally on top. You have to remember,
that's the first half against Dublin. Then are you going to dismiss TJ Reid's first half against Dublin because they were totally on top?
No, but he was still brilliant in the second half. He was the one leading the charge when Dublin fought back. I cannot pick an all-star team without him, and I think he's a full forward. To me, he lifted an average Kilkenny team to a Leinster title.
And that is actually correct. Yeah, I'm not debating that. But are you going to put him ahead of Aaron Gillan, who had a quiet semi-final? But Aaron Gillan has had a brilliant season. So are you leaving Aaron Gillan out of this? Are you leaving Stephen Bennett out of this?
I would be leaving Aaron Gillan out of this, yeah.
You would be?
I would be leaving him out of it, yeah. He had a quiet Munster final. He had a quiet All-Ireland semi-final. He was quiet-ish against Clare the first day as well.
He was brilliant against Tipperary.
TJ Reid only played 3 games.
He was unbelievable against Tipperary. He had a great All-Ireland final. The first game against Tipperary.
You were pushing for Conor Ponti at cornerback, and now you're pushing for Aaron Gillan at the other end. You can't have it both ways.
I can, because they both did unbelievable. It reminds me of the 2014 All-Ireland. You had 30 players on the field, and in so many matchups, both players played brilliantly. You'd have a wing back and a wing forward who both somehow went to town in the same game. I think it's kind of like that. Both of them did really well. Both of them lost 50-50s. Both of them won ball they should have won. Both of them won ball they shouldn't have won. And Aaron Gillan was after coming back from injury.
TJ Reid over 3 games, 334, 3-6 from play.
Look, don't get me wrong. I know he was excellent. But what we're doing here is kind of trying to pick between a number of players who were all brilliant.
Listen, it's a great debate to have. We're picking between 2 Rolls-Royce forwards. But if I was picking this is my all-star team for 2020, TJ Reid is full forward all day, every day.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you necessarily just get your way here.
It doesn't mean I get my way. But are you that strong on Aaron Gillan ahead of TJ Reid here?
I'm not necessarily that strong on Aaron Gillan, but I might be more strong on in the forward line having Austin Gleeson and Stephen Bennett, and dare I mention Brian Kincannon.
Yeah, the Brian Kincannon's a corner forward to me. Although he played wing forward against for large spells against Limerick. That if you're looking at the corner forward spot, that's between him and Gillan, I would be saying.
For the corner forward spot, well, Gillan definitely doesn't play corner forward. He plays full forward. He is the target man inside. Huh?
He plays in a 2-man full forward line.
Yeah, but Kincannon is often in there. He was in there against Tipperary hugely. He was brilliant that day, nailed a goal, really good performance. Against Limerick, he probably did most of his damage. I fully accept on this part of the debate. He did most of his damage out wing forward and gave Diarmaid Byrnes a really tough time of it. Did go inside at times and probably less. But you'd have to say, Galway really struggled to deliver balls to their inside line that day. So anytime he was in the game, he was brilliant. I think Brian Kincannon is a right shout for corner forward here.
Just a couple of comments in here, Shane. Why can't you put Austin, TJ and Bennett in the 3 positions there? Because basically you're picking a team then with no corner forward. And that's not the team. That's not the team. I can't pick that. Jack McGilligan says TJ Reid is a poor man's Gillan, which I can't agree with. PJ Sull says Austin Gleeson deserved a spot in the team. Gleeson was a force in every game he played. Jack Nulty says Jack Galway did nothing really, so unless from Clare, not too sure what he's talking about there. But we can't put those. I can't put those 3 guys into the forward line. That's not what we're doing.
No,
like
we're better than that.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be if we were picking a 15 to go out and play in the morning. We'd be picking a 15 without an out corner forward on the team, and you can't do that. So to me, I think Brian Kincannon has an outstanding shout at corner forward. Just going back through some of his stats for this year, he destroyed Wexford 1-4 from play. Point against Kilkenny, that great goal against Tip. Like, as well as that, like, in the nicest way possible, he probably got Barrett sent off, and that was the reason why Galway won that game. And when they were struggling for scores against Limerick, he got 3 points against Limerick. So he scored 2-5, 2-8 from play over 4 games. Thought he was brilliant. I thought it was a standout season for him. He's 11-2 to be a forward all-star, and I think that's a great bet. And to be honest, like he's in my team at corner forward anyway.
So you're saying 2-8 for him, 3-6 for TJ Reid from play?
3-6 right? From TJ Reid from play, yeah.
So there's very little in it there. Who added more otherwise? And what was it like? Realistically, was TJ Reid more at centre forward or full forward, like half forward or inside line?
I'd say he played full forward a lot against Dublin, and he played full forward a lot against Galway as well. Played predominantly centre forward against Waterford, all right, but like he easily played the guts of 2/3 of his hurling at full forward.
Yeah, my own clubmate there in Coola, Keane Waldron, a Kilkenny native, I might add. Barney saved him from his own stupidity. Thanks for that, Keane. Really appreciate that.
What's reference to what exactly?
Well, look, it's a Kilkenny man. What do you think this is about? It's about
Oh, sorry, he's actually giving me a compliment. Apologies. To be honest, Shane, I just think on the body of work over his 3 games, I think TJ is ahead of Gillan. Gillan is only coming into the conversation now after the final.
What did Gillan score overall from play?
Not that much. I don't have it offhand. Got 1-1 against Tipperary, a couple of points against Waterford, and a couple of points against Clare. Not sure if he scored much in the All-Ireland semi-final. Very little. And obviously, Shane, he had 5 games to score less than TJ from play.
Yeah, he was so like. Does that Limerick team work? Kilkenny doesn't work without TJ Reid. Do Limerick work without Aaron Gillan?
I think they work more this year without him than they have before. They won a lot of big games without. Like, he was poor in the All-Ireland semi-final, and that's when Hegarty and Morrissey came to the fore. So, like, TJ's full forward for me anyway. I'm not sure. Like, what do you think Gillan deserves to be there ahead of him?
Look, I'm torn, and I'm looking at what Gillan scored here, right? And he scored 244 over the course of the season. Just the stats I'm looking at there, I'm not entirely sure how much of that is from play. Stephen Bennett 154, Tony Kelly 153, Gillan 244, Joe Canning 49 points, TJ Reid 334, Donald Burke. There was actually a comment in there about Donald Burke. He scored 110, Patrick Horgan 224. Man, I don't know. I'm torn here. I think Brian Kincannon has to get into the team. Did you say that as well?
I'd agree with Brian Kincannon corner forward, definitely. Thought he was huge, and if we're picking a team based on guys playing in positions as well.
Yeah, like we're backing ourselves into a corner in a way by trying to pick it honestly.
Oh no, 100%, yeah.
Because you know what, there'd be no public outcry if Brian Kincannon doesn't get an All-Star. It's kind of like some lads often get it because of the big names.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. Like, he's an out-and-out corner forward, and he's an out-and-out corner forward that has the ability to play in the half-forward line as well. And like, how dangerous was he this year? He was unbelievably dangerous. As I said, he scored 2-8 over the course of the 4 games, and he was a defiant force against Limerick. Brian Kincannon's corner forward. I'm glad to see he's gone in there. Yeah. Now you're just what are we left with? We're left with Austin Gleeson.
With misery because we somehow have to fit in Austin Gleeson, Stephen Bennett, TJ Reid, Aaron Gillan.
Well, we don't have to fit them all.
And Seamus Callanan, who I thought was brilliant in a team that was misfiring this year for Tipperary.
Seamus Callanan was brilliant, but he's not in the same conversation as those 4.
Okay. What way
he worked unbelievably hard, and I appreciate where you're coming from, because he didn't do the goal scoring Seamus Callanan this year because those chances didn't arise. But he was the worker bee Callanan this year.
Yeah, you appreciate where I'm coming from, which is about 3 miles away from Drummond Inch. Okay, I'm really torn here. Have we any further comments in trying to keep us honest? I see Pa O'Connor there saying TJ has to get in over Galan, Bennett has to get into centre forward.
Good man, Pa. I'd agree with you. I'd have Stephen Bennett centre forward and I'd have TJ Reid full forward. But I do appreciate that there has to be some horse trading in this. But to me, I don't think TJ is that negotiable. I think TJ had a better season. I think he had a better season than Gleeson, and I think he had a better season than Galan.
Yeah, Conor Kelly says Galan and Flanagan definitely. JPX and a load of other letters says Shane, you forgot Cathal Barrett. No, I didn't actually mention him now, to be fair. And then the same guy says, oh lads, that's a joke. Put Lynch in, make the call, leave Reid, Ozzy Bennett out. Lynch gets my vote.
I just don't think Cian Lynch did enough over the 5 games, and it's 4 games you're only basing him on because he only played centre forward for those 4 games. He was very good in the second half against Galway. Would you say he had a quiet enough All-Ireland final in comparison to his teammates?
I think he started the game really well and then probably was a little bit quieter. But I still thought he was I thought he had a really good season, but I don't think we can have him in this.
No, I don't. He's not. To me, he's not in the four lads that are vying for this last 2 spots. And if I'm honest, it's 3 for me because it's Bennett, TJ, and Galan for me. I don't have Gleeson in that conversation. I just don't think he did enough. There was fleeting brilliance, and the All-Ireland semi-final was brilliant, and he was good. He was very good in the final, in fairness. But I just think if we're judging the whole thing as a whole, it's 3 for me. And if I'm honest, it's Bennett centre forward and it's TJ full forward for me.
Yeah, Jack McGilligan says, and this is a big one now, TJ Reid is a false image. Look into the advanced stats. I'm not fully sure what false image means, but he's basically saying that his advanced stats, that he's not quite up there. And no, I don't agree with that at all. I think he's
3-6 from play.
Oh no, look, you don't have to convince me. I know he's sensational. But I do think there was periods of those games where he was really, really quiet. And given the billing we give him as, in the handful of players that are the best players in Ireland, where would you rate this among his best ever seasons?
TJ's?
Yeah.
It's high up enough, Shane, to be honest with you. It's high up enough. I just think there's an awful lot of competition in the forward line, maybe more so than other years, and maybe that's why there's maybe more debate about this maybe than there would have been other years. The quality in the forward line was absolutely outstanding this year, maybe a lot more so than other years.
Yeah, Jack McGilligan has clarified a false forward role, so I suppose in his head he's suggesting that he plays in other positions or moves around maybe into his own half. I'm not 100% sure. He might clarify even more. JPX,
Jen,
yeah,
we're going to have to make the call.
Yeah.
You're tippy-toeing around it here. We're going to have to make the call on centre forward and full forward, and we're going to pick guys in the positions that they played in.
I think Austin Gleeson has to be in here.
Oh,
I think he has to be in here, and I think he has to be centre forward.
Okay, well, I put it to you this way. If you're saying Austin Gleeson centre forward, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Stephen Bennett should be in beforehand. But if you're saying Austin Gleeson centre forward, then I'm saying TJ Reid a full forward.
But did he play that full forward type role more often? I think he played more of it out the field. Only he probably really knows. But
did Austin Gleeson play centre forward?
I think he was out in the half forward line most of the time.
Yeah. I definitely think TJ played the good over half of his time on the pitch in those 3 games at full forward, and he obviously got those 2 goals. He got the 3 goals from full forward actually.
No, I wouldn't say he got that goal against Watford from the full forward line. I think a ball broke from Richie Hogan, who was full forward, and he came through from the half forward line. So I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay, he got 2 of them then. I can't stand over. Listen. I don't think Austin Gleeson should be on the team, and that's with due respect to him. I think Stephen Bennett should be the Waterford forward that should be on the team. But if you're adamant to go with that, there has to be a trade-off. I'm not going to say that Stephen Bennett should be full forward and Ozzy centre forward. If Ozzy is centre forward, then TJ has to be full forward.
So you're saying Galan out, Stephen Bennett, they're going to both miss out?
Yeah, I'd say they're both going to miss out in that case.
We should mention Conor Whelan, shouldn't we?
We should, yeah. And in fairness, we should probably mention Desi Hutchinson as well as an out-and-out corner forward. We probably saw glimpses of glimpses of greatness. And if Waterford develop a game plan where he's fed even more that quality ball, like that he got maybe only once or twice in the second half of the All-Ireland final last day, he can be their killer forward. I thought he was brilliant. Conor Whelan was brilliant as well. He obviously had 4 points against Wexford. He was probably one of the ones really pushing him and Concannon against Limerick in that semi-final as well.
So we're basically going to pick a team that neither of us agree with, which is in true traditional All-Star style.
I'd agree with 14 of the 15 positions.
So are you giving me Austin Gleeson as centre forward?
Well, I'm only giving you Austin Gleeson centre forward if TJ is full forward.
Jeez, neither of us are happy here.
How? But how can you stand over? Like, how can you? So who are you putting in ahead of TJ if TJ's not in the team? Because you cannot stand over Stephen Bennett not being in this team.
But I mean, I think Austin Gleeson
Stephen Bennett has had more of an impact for Waterford than Austin Gleeson. But I believe that we have to horse trade. Well, I think we're horse trading on the wrong player here. Like, Stephen Bennett should be. You have Austin Gleeson written in as centre forward now.
No, but I have TJ Reid written in at full forward.
I'm finding it really, really hard to stand over that. I don't want it to be the case now where people are the our All-Star team is picked in and people are like Austin Gleeson centre forward. Yeah, that was the other lad. He was adamant. He was in. What could I do?
Yeah, but like. I'm not saying you're dismissing Aaron Glenn. Obviously, you're not dismissing Aaron Glenn, but you're happy to move away from Aaron Glenn here, despite what he did against Tipperary, despite good performances throughout the season, and maybe just take out the Galway game where he didn't look 100% right or spilled a few balls or his finger, the ligament was an issue. I think overall he had a brilliant season. He had a brilliant final. He was brilliant against Tipperary. What's your problem with Aaron Glenn?
I don't have any problem with him. I thought it was a 50-50 battle against Conor Ponti in the Munster final. He got the edge in the All-Ireland final. He was very quiet in the All-Ireland semi-final. I'm not sure about that Tipperary game. And looking back at the first half, he wasn't that influential in the first half. He obviously got that brilliant goal and he scored a penalty as well. He was quiet enough against Clare. Like, I just think, I think he finished on a high. I don't think he would have been in the All-Star conversation had he not finished in a high as he did the other day.
So we're leaving Stephen Bennett out.
I think it's a disgrace, and I think he should be shot. I think he should be shot for leaving him out, to be honest with you.
What do you really think? Is there anyone else we're missing out here now before we move away from this and people say you never talked about whoever? And I'll just run through the teams quickly just to make sure we don't. Okay, we talked about all the Limerick lads. I think we've talked about all the Clare lads. Aaron Shannon had good moments here, but I don't think we're going to talk about the All-Star team. Watford, we've talked through everybody. I don't think there's anyone we were going to talk about that we've left out. Jack Fagan obviously had a very good season, but I don't think the final of Munster or the All-Ireland went his way. Cork, Patrick Horgan, I think we can give a nod to Robbie O'Flynn to some degree, but I don't think so. Tipperary, we've talked about them a bit, probably not enough, but we've talked about them. Dublin, don't really think anyone's in the conversation here from Dublin. Laois, probably not. Aaron Dunphy had some good moments. A couple of players had decent moments. Kilkenny, we've talked about Kilkenny plenty, I would imagine. Galway, we've looked at them. I don't really think there's anyone else. And in Wexford, we've already kind of said from the start, there's nobody from Wexford getting in.
Shane, A. O'Connor has just summed up this whole conversation and your life. He says, "You're a fool, Stapleton." and I agree with him. Conor Lahey says, "No, Keane Lynch, are you mad?" No, I don't think we're mad. I think
we are now. Come on.
Well, we are a small bit. I don't think we're that mad in this instance. I think like Stephen Bennett will be far more hard done by not being in this team than Keane Lynch.
Yeah.
And like people are saying, Stephen Bennett should be in instead of Brian Concannon. And I understand where you're coming from. If you're picking the best 6 forwards, maybe that's the way we do it. But then we have a full forward line of Tony Kelly, 2 corner forwards, Tony Kelly and Stephen Bennett, neither of which played, full forward. They don't play that traditional corner forward role. So then you have a team that's just kind of all over the place, in my view, to be honest with you. And just on the team we have picked, in fairness, back to Mark Ferncome's comment again, we have TJ Reid as the free taker in the forward line, and we have Tony Kelly maybe as a replacement free taker in the full forward line. But Tony Kelly is not maybe as renowned on frees as TJ Reid. So we haven't gone and picked a load of free takers. That's the one justification I'd say for not picking Stephen Bennett, even though I think he should be centre forward.
You see now, if we were doing if we were picking a load of free takers, that'd be for like the fantasy hurling league. So that we're not trying to pick a team that'll win that, albeit it would help you along the way. Is there any way that we could say Stephen Bennett should be in here ahead of Tony Kelly?
At corner forward, no.
But like he's not going to stay in corner forward.
No, I don't think so, Shane. Like I think TJ Reid or Tony Kelly had three of the great individual performances this year. Brilliant individual, like unbelievable. And the only reason he will be left out is because he's not fresh in our minds from like last Sunday or the Sunday before that or the Sunday before that. So I think it'd be an absolute travesty. I'd be an absolute travesty if he was left out, and we couldn't stand over that.
Yeah, look, neither of us are entirely happy, but I do think we have a pretty strong here.
I'm very happy with 14 of the 15.
Yeah, and I feel similar enough too. I still don't know if I'd settle on bringing in Stephen Bennett somewhere or Aaron Gillan or something like that. But like, actually, how many Limerick do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're well represented here. So there's no such thing as the dominant All-Ireland champions not being represented. Actually, it's funnily enough, the team that got closest to them, Galway, they've only number 4 and number 15 here, so they've got a couple. Then you're looking at Waterford getting 1, 2, 3 players here. They might feel a little bit underrepresented, as in nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Stephen Bennett. And after that, who else do we have? I think that's pretty much the height of it. We have Clare, Tony Kelly. So
this boys absolutely hopping off each other in the YouTube chat here. Absolutely hopping off each other. All-star debates never fail, to cause unbelievable controversy.
Yeah, I've never seen as many comments on the YouTube page. So
I do agree with something Conor Lahy says here. He says for the All-Stars, Gillan will get in ahead of Concannon, and that happens a lot of the time.
That's what we're saying. The bigger name. Yeah, the bigger name.
I'm not saying he doesn't deserve an All-Star. He's very, very close, but I think like Brian Concannon was playing corner forward predominantly throughout this year. Was really, really dangerous. He was brilliant. I think he was brilliant across their 4 games. Maybe the only one he was slightly quiet in was the Leinster final. And I think if I'm looking at who's going to be the most likely to lose out here, Brian Concannon, who's 11-2 to win an All-Star, and Will O'Donoghue, who was both our first midfielder, he's 8-1 to win an All-Star. How he would lose out is inconceivable in my head, but he could.
Yeah, and then a further comment from JPX and all the other letters. Lucky these boys are picking the All-Stars. It's fair enough, isn't it? Can you imagine trying to pick this with another 10 lads?
Yeah, I'm very happy with my team, I have to say. I said there's probably only one player, maybe 1 or 2 that you disagree with, and we're obviously going to have there's 2 people deciding here. So that's naturally going to be. But I'm very, very happy with the 90% of that team.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there. We have our team: Nicky Quaid, Sean Finn, Dan Morrissey, Dahi Burke. Half back line of Dermot Burns, Ty de Burke, Kyle Hayes. Midfield of Jamie Barron and Will O'Donoghue. Half forward line of Grode Hegarty, Austin Gleeson, Tom Morrissey, and the full forward line roaming Tony Kelly, TJ Reid, and Brian Concannon. Michael Verney, thank you very much.
Just a quick one, Shane. JPX says Verney, Gillan would take you on a tour of Tullamore. I've no doubt he would. I've no doubt he would.
What a grim day. Both because it's Tullamore and because it's getting cleaned off by him. Alright, that's it. Look, if you want to get the Limerick commemorative jersey after winning their All-Ireland, it'll come up on screen now, and email the link underneath the video, and we'll get that sent out to you. Michael Verney, thank you very much.
Cheers, Shane.